Come a little closer. Let me see you. Congratulations, you are perfect. You've been designed to do precisely what you're doing right now. You've been built to earn what you're earning and do the work that you're doing, to live the life you have. But have you ever imagined more? Ever thought about making a change? It's so hard because inertia has a power all its own. Once we're set in motion, it's hard to change course. But what if now? What if here? What if you or your organization, your family, your community, your nation could be something more? What if all it took was a little course correction? And all you had to do was eat less, exercise more, sell more stuff, come in a little earlier, stay a little later, and leave part of who you are at the door. Success is hard because change is hard. That's why being a leader is so celebrated, because it's the hardest of all. To create a lifestyle that fits who you want to become. To build a company that sustains, even thrives in change. To envision a new and better world for yourself and others. This is the stuff of leaders, women and men that see the possible and are willing to win. Are willing to make the change that's needed to help others do the same. That's what being a leader is all about. You see, without leaders, we surrender the hope and the promise of tomorrow. And we stay perfectly engineered to do and be exactly what we are right now. Do you want to change? Find a leader. Or better yet, be a leader and make a plan. From the edge of tomorrow, a growing legion of people are rewriting the future before it's too late. Join us and be a part of it all. This is Willing to Win. If you're willing to think different, willing to work different, willing to change at the speed of now, then you're willing to win. Welcome to Willing to Win. I'm Jeff Kaplan.
And I'm Tara Thomas-Gettman. Thanks for joining us once again as we continue to help you reshape your future, because I can promise you, we can promise you, it's coming, whether we want to embrace it or not.
Absolutely. You probably have felt it even in the last week or so, just in your daily interactions with the world. There is a disorientation and a feeling that maybe things just don't make sense. Why do we have a war going on in a country that shouldn't be at war? Why do we have these problems at home? Why do we continue to have issues with people harming other people in places that they should feel safe?
Absolutely. Referencing the school shooting and so many other sort of attacks on American lives. And it makes us uneasy, but at the same time, we know that change is not always easy to embrace, especially when it's happening so rapidly or in ways that are hard to process. You talked about in your opening monologue that we call From the Edge, leadership is hard. It's easier to be the sheep that follows the shepherd than the shepherd who's out, ensuring the safety of every sheep's life. And so why is it that we, as, I guess, people that feel overwhelmed, why is it that we sometimes don't embrace the fact that we're actually using strategies and trying to execute leadership every day in our lives, whether we even acknowledge that we're doing it?
That is a great question. It's so heartening to me that our conversation has come, to this point, and that's because I think we're starting to really understand all the tools that go into being effective in a world of change. Right? We started talking about the fact that change is not going to happen unless we change, and the people that are experts at change are leaders, and leaders are experts at change because they know how to plan, they know how to create strategies, they know how to measure and monitor those strategies so they're more likely to achieve the outcomes they want to achieve. And in a world where everything is ambiguous, nothing is known, the unprecedented is standard, we need to start having some of those tools so that we can take some semblance of control.
And this is where you come in to really say that all of us can be strategists, whether it be personally or professionally. We need to have a plan and we need to work that plan. And when we think about a strategy that's really simple, we can all relate to, thanks to Google Maps, if I'm in traffic, I can strategize what's the best, quickest route to take in light of a problem, traffic. So how do we truly execute strategy? What are the steps? Like what's the simple way that someone can really embrace it and understand that you're actually doing it when you may not even realize it?
Yeah, I think we all plan, right? If you've ever had a wedding or even a birthday party for somebody, that's a plan, right? You have a vision of what that event is going to be like. You share your excitement with others. You share a vision of what that's going to be, and you get other people to help you build the party, set up the decorations and so forth, and then you go ahead and execute that. You make that a reality. And I want to tell you that a lot of times we make things really complicated. We always say overcomplicated and underhuman. Strategy is right up there at the top of the list with something that's been overcomplicated. It's really simple. A strategy is a plan about the future, about a future vision that you want to achieve, or a future vision someone else has that you believe in and that you're willing to commit to. And strategies have very specific criteria. And although we could go really in depth with all the details about best practices for strategy, just remember 3 simple things if you have a strategy. Number 1, give your strategy a name, right? So it's like, I want to do this thing where people are coming over and we're going to put candles in this cake and everybody's going to jump out. And it's like, wait a second, what do you mean? Surprise party? Yeah, it's called the surprise party. Once you give it a name and it's got context, then when other people talk about it, then they'll be better able to support your project or your strategy as it goes forward. And then, beyond just, giving it a name, it's really important that we remember anything we do in this life, whatever we want, whatever we hope to accomplish, whatever strategy or vision we have, it's really going to depend on the help and support of others. So ask others for help. Tell people about your strategy. Get them involved, because their involvement will make it much more likely that you'll be able to be successful. And the third and final thing is something that goes all the way back to the very first writers on this topic of this new modern era of leadership, and that's John P. Cotter, the Harvard professor who's written on leadership for some 20 or 30 years now. And in his book, he says, over-communicate by a factor of 10. Tell people how things are going. Tell them how needs have changed and how they'd be able to help at each specific point, so that you've not only engaged people, you've kept them engaged and you've increased your chances of success. Do those 3 things and you'll have a really good chance of making your strategy a reality.
One thing you may have done before in your life, I know you've said this has been something that was trendy, especially with professional development for companies, and that is creating a vision board. So putting really on paper, literally something tangible that you can look at and say, these are the strategies for my life that I want to execute in some ways, or a vision or a goal. And the way that we now sort of look back at vision boards, it sounded maybe gimmicky or trendy, but what we know from talking and surveying and sort of the research that our team has done, it truly can set somebody on the path to not have things just happen to them, to not just be reactive, but to really be proactive about what do you want in your life, and tangible steps to get there that can really start with putting it on paper.
It can seem gimmicky, but let's just go through the logic of it for a second. Tara, I've got a vision and I want you to be a part of it. Will you be a part of the vision?
Give me more. I need to know. I need to
exactly.
see it, feel it, taste it.
When I say the same thing, like a lot of times we'll challenge, people that we're, doing one-on-one coaching with, we'll challenge them to write their own obituary. And before they, start freaking out, even thinking about the topic. But most people don't have a vision for what they want their life to be. What is the contribution they're making? And so when they come up with a strategic plan, they may not have a really clear vision about what it looks like. If you want to do something, on what day is it going to be done? What is the day going to be like? What is the room going to look like? What's the feeling going to look like? A vision board is a great way for you to start, filling in those gaps in your vision to make it more real. We have a new piece to our set here today. That is the willing to win crystal ball. So as we look into the future and we're trying to rewrite that future before it's too late, we want to make sure that as we craft that vision, it's absolutely crystal clear in that crystal ball, so we can make it crystal clear reality once we've successfully executed the strategy.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up about when you have that conversation with somebody, and when it comes to writing the obituary, it might sound morbid, but the fact is we all want our potential obituary to contain some good news, like something we've accomplished, something that we can share and feel good about, the legacy that we're leaving for our loved ones. And so you bring up a good point. If that's the case, that we all have that sort of hope or dream, then technically we do have a vision board in our head that maybe we just need help mapping out and putting on paper.
Yeah, we're not trying to be pedantic. We're not trying to tell you, each person must do this. Create your own style. The big test is, no matter how you get there, when you have a vision and you're trying to create a plan or a strategy or however you want to call your goal statement, when you create that, is it clear to you? Do you feel it? Will you know it when it's there? Can you explain it to others? Do they get it? If it passes those tests, however you got there, good on. More power to you.
Well, thanks for staying with Willing to Win. When we come back, we're going to talk about what Jeff alluded to, the importance of communication that we cannot emphasize enough, and creative ways that our mind can execute it. Stay with us.
Willing to Win.
Thanks for staying with Willing to Win. I'm Tara Thomas-Gettman, and joining us is Alyssa Nolte. Oh, and Jeff Kaplan. He's the guru, the man behind the curtain, if you will, who's now going public with all of his insight that we hope we can impart to you to improve your life. Communication is key. Everyone knows that. It's almost cliche because we understand that you have to not just, assume someone gets what you're saying, but communicate it in a way that's understood. So much has changed, though, in the way we communicate because of technology. I mean, we all have children. I had no idea when I decided to have kids that someday I'd be texting them to come to dinner, right?
From upstairs.
Yeah, from the same house where we all reside. So what is it about communication that is so critical, especially at a time when we have a hard time navigating it if grandma doesn't want to FaceTime, but Jimmy only likes to text?
Yeah, the reality is, I used to own a trade show company many years ago. I started my business at a series of consumer expositions before the internet. They were a hot thing. You'd go down to the expo and get all the information on your favorite subject. I had done it for sports, skiing and golf and some travel. And I will tell you that we would go ahead and advertise for the show. And if we advertised only on TV, nobody would show up. If we advertised only in the newspaper, nobody would show up. If we advertised only on billboards, less than nobody would show up. But if we did all three of those things and several other things, what's called a marketing mix, if we used them all, we'd have lines around the block, right? So it really is about understanding all the tools at your disposal, understanding all the people that you need to communicate with, and sending out those messages in various forms on a continuous basis. It is a lot of work, and that's why communication specialists, PR people, are in such demand around the country, especially in turbulent times. But there's another side to that as well. Not only do you have to use the mix of what you know, so that's informal vision boards, like what we talked about. You can write things, you can make videos, right? But now there's even new ways to communicate, which might challenge us in the future for how we make that communication.
It's amazing, and that's where Alyssa comes in. You found a couple just incredible examples that are truly life-changing for the people involved, but also make you think, like Jeff said, about, okay, the traditional channels of communication are being blown up, and there's a whole new world out there. Talk about these really cool examples you found.
Absolutely. So I've spent the last several years promoting this thing called human-computer interaction. And it's essentially a study about the way we as people interact with technology. And as we have more computers around us, as a computer fits in our pocket, as a computer fits on our wrist, we have these greater interactions with technology. And I always have this experience with people of, you're at the register and something isn't ringing up right. And my go-to phrase is, technology, wouldn't it be great if it worked, right? And human-computer interaction is this study of how do we make these human technology experiences better? So these two examples I'm going to show you today are really these companies taking human-computer interaction to an entirely new level and allowing people who have had the ability to communicate taken away from them. A fundamental thing that we all, the three of us especially at this table, take for granted.
Yes.
Has been returned to them through the power of technology. So the first company I'm going to show you is called Synchron. They have just been approved by the FDA for their first human trial in the US. So take a look.
And they can start using the mouse as they would have before they were paralyzed.
That platform then is like a Bluetooth out of your brain to control a computer or a device where there is no need for a keyboard or a mouse. This is a truly hands-free, brain-controlled platform.
So Graham can right now surf the web, write up Word documents, check his emails, do basically everything that a person normally can on a computer, using nothing but his brain and his eyes.
That is incredible, and what a gift to be able to have somebody who, like you said, is having such an important part of their life and their relationship taken away from them, to not be able to speak in the traditional way that you would communicate, in this case, with this guy's family and all of his friends and everyone in his world.
Absolutely. It was amazing to watch him send an email by merely thinking about what he would type in his Gmail browser and in his interface, and to watch him be able to type on Facebook and to do all of the things that we take for granted. I'm just going to check Facebook real quick. I'm just going to send an email real quick. All of those things that we do without even thinking about it was something that he thought he was never going to be able to do again.
Now, it could change how we view what right now is, an otherwise able person, right? Change it completely, because what we're trying to do is give them the basic skills to do these things, to be able to communicate what's inside. I mean, I can't imagine any worse personal hell than being inside your body and not being able to communicate. But it's not too hard to imagine that what if they just were able to amp this stuff up and people were able to actually outperform those people that have their full faculties, right? That is a whole nother possibility in the future as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's going to change how we communicate, as you said, hopefully bringing the human element into technology and weaving that into a way where you can still have your authentic voice, self, and personality. That's what I love about it. I mean, he's powering the technology by his brain, his thoughts, his feelings. It's making it human. Similarly, we know of, all of us have friends and know of children that are on the autism spectrum, for example, and might be nonverbal, and how tough that is as a parent if your child can't communicate his or her needs once they get to the stages of talking. But you found an example of something that, completely gives everyone hope if they've ever had a situation where somebody is nonverbal.
I came across a video scrolling on TikTok, again, taking for granted my experiences and my capabilities to interact with technology. I came across a TikTok about Elizabeth Bunker, a valedictorian who recently delivered the commencement speech at Rollins College in Florida. And rather than spend any more time speaking for Elizabeth, I'm going to let you take a look as she delivers the commencement speech at her graduation without saying a word.
I know something about shared achievements because I am affected by a form of autism that doesn't allow me to speak. My neuromotor issues also prevent me from tying my shoes or buttoning a shirt without assistance. I have typed this speech with one finger with a communication partner holding a keyboard. I am one of the lucky few non-speaking autistics who have been taught to type. That one critical intervention unlocked my mind from its silent cage, enabling me to communicate and to be educated, like my hero Helen Keller.
I just love that. I mean, how exciting, and for the parents and family to see her come that far and to just have the courage to be able to do something that she was never really able-bodied to execute her entire life.
Absolutely.
It really is amazing, and it's kind of hard not to be emotional, when you're watching that. Mm-hmm. But we've been doing a lot of work lately trying to clarify for the members of the Legion and people that we work with professionally, organizations that we work with, on what are the roles for the mission, vision, and values of a company, because those are very often misunderstood. But I will tell you that what is absolutely clear is the mission of an organization has nothing to do with its products or services. It's a statement about what you intend to contribute to the world, or how the world is going to interact with your organization. Can you imagine the passion and the drive and the dedication the people at those organizations would have, knowing that that's the impact that they're making on the world? I was always inspired by Steve Jobs and his mission statement for Apple, and that's to put a dent in the universe. And I thought that was so bold and so brash, but it certainly does apply to both of those organizations. I applaud them, and if there's ever any way that Willing to Win can help either of those organizations succeed, we are here to help.
And when we think about how difficult it can be to take the mission and the vision and the values and put them on paper, execute them, and coalesce everyone around that same result, that's where project management comes in. Why is it so important that the person who's at the helm, the project manager, be selected carefully?
Well, it's important because the projects that add up to what your company does or what you're trying to achieve overall, those are the little wins that keep people going, that give them the energy each day. And as you succeed, succeeding becomes a habit. We know the other way too, right? Failure becomes a habit. You can get withdrawn and the performance continues to go the wrong way. But we can create a virtuous cycle with our projects by having best practice management of our projects, making sure that each project is given a name, making sure that we've engaged as many people that are interested or can contribute or just want to be a part of it as possible, and then making sure that we communicate along the way so that when we get there, everybody feels like they were a part of it.
And we're fortunate that we had a chance to talk with Amber Moore. She is a project management expert who works with Lift Innovate. Let's hear from her about what can make or break your project.
She's the best in the business.
A lot of projects are going to be very innovative, right? And in an innovative environment, vision can be really hard because you're kind of creating the vision as you go with a project, especially if it's something brand new. So with a well-defined purpose, you'll have a clear destination of where you're striving to, but getting a really deep understanding of the people that this project is going to impact, the tools that they use every day, the processes that they have to do to get their jobs done, really understanding that truly is crucial. You need to have somebody that's able to bring calm and order to chaos. So if everybody in the group is stressing out, right, and they're all spinning their wheels, the project's never going to go anywhere. So it's vital that there is a person who's comfortable with pulling people onto the ground and maybe lightening up on the gas a little bit and focusing everybody so that traction can actually be made. Data is everything these days, so making sure your project includes it is really important. So if you're working on a project that has any kind of impact on your stakeholders, you better tell them in advance. Communication is key. So take the time to have as many of the questions answered before they're even asked.
Jeff, much like what we talked about with Alyssa, you can't remove the human element for technology to be integrated and to really help you as a company or as an individual succeed, right? Amber personifies how she brings that human, that real, sincere approach to the project. And that's why she's been so successful in helping companies see through what they had, on paper that ended up being hitting it out of the park in terms of how it was carried out.
Well, she's amazing. I've worked with Amber for over a decade now, and we've been, all over the world together. So I really admire her work. And I got to tell you that what she does is so much more than project management or technology adoption. When you think about it, organization has a sort of a life of its own. It has a consciousness, right? And for anything to be a part of a consciousness, it really needs to do two things. It needs to provide new information or new context, and it needs to be integrated, right? It's not like you had 55 different lives or 1,000 different lives, or every day you wake up, you start a new life, right? You wake up and it's sort of like integrated. It connects to the day before. An organization, for it to be effective and consistent, needs to have an ongoing narrative, and that narrative should be about how we are successful today, and having people like Amber make sure that those projects along the way are winners. It goes a long way to really bumping the overall performance. So you not only get the advantage of the project, which you're doing because you want those outcomes, right? But you also get the advantage of helping your organization advance into the future with a narrative about winning, getting the job done.
Excellent. And to get your dream realized, we are challenging you this week to do a vision board. It's a very simple concept, but one that you'll find quite rewarding, and it could change your life, right? So we have some simple steps for people to follow. Essentially, you just want to make sure you write out your goals and prioritize. As Jeff has been talking about, it's so important that we don't just have sort of this pipe dream, but we speak it into action, right? By sharing and communicating what we want in life. And this can start with gathering some supplies. You can use an online tool. For all the younger folks, that would be like Pinterest, where you can pin pictures on a board, or you can go old school like me and go to the dollar store and get some poster board and a glue stick and grab some of those old magazines, you know, that you...
If we're like you, we've got that at our house because we've got kids. We got more poster boards and more pencils.
Yeah, a lot of glue sticks that have never been opened, but were required every year on the school supply list. So you want to just collect everything that inspires you. So find these images. If you have to, you know, grab some magazines at the store. They still sell magazines. It's a thing that our generation enjoyed. My 17 subscription was in perpetuity for a while there. And you want to just find intentional representations of your dreams and goals. And you know what they are. So when you find that image that sort of nails it and it's spot on, then you add that to your pile and then create really what we call a collage, something that's aesthetically pleasing that you could frame, or if you're, again, into the tech side of things, you could take a photo of it and use it as a computer screenshot.
That's what we do, and it's a great way. Every time you turn on that computer, you're going to see your vision board. It's going to remind you of what you're working for. Because one thing that's going to happen, one thing that's sure to happen today, is what you set out to do when you got up this morning is probably not how the day went. The day had its own ideas, and life has its own ideas. So to remind us to stay focused on what our goals are, or to help us better crystallize, the vision that we want for tomorrow. Having that vision board is a great way to get you going.
It's so true. Use it as an anchor to keep yourself on track when we have those days that go sideways, as we all do. Let's recap. So today we talked about a strategy plan and how you can execute it with some really simple steps. What's coming up next as we continue this season to really dive more into strategy?
Well, we're going to talk next time about the levels of a strategy, right? So how do you get in there and manage each component? And then how do you alter the story? So as an example, let's say you had a strategy that you want your parents' support for something when you were a kid, right? You'd go to your mom and you'd say one thing. Would you say the exact same thing to dad?
Not at all.
No, it's a different strategy. That's what
right.
levels of strategy is. And that's what we'll be talking about in the next episode.
That's great. And then coming up later this season, we're going to talk about how we may not realize that we're being lied to, but how we can make sure that it doesn't keep happening to us. It's going to be a great episode with a lot of fun content. So if you missed it, or you missed this episode, I should say, and want to catch this and other Willing to Win, just go to our website, willingtowin.org. That's willing2win.org. You can follow us on Twitter. Jeff's all over social media at Dr. Kaplan, Twitter, LinkedIn. I mean, the list goes on, right? Because we're just complicating our lives, but still trying to keep things simple. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.
See you next time. These episodes are the first reports filed from the front lines of change, where a growing legion of individuals and organizations are discovering what it takes to win and stay winning in a world defined by change and driven by interconnected human networks.
Willing to Win is produced by Lift Productions. Guests on the program are not compensated, nor is their appearance representative of the Willing to Win views. Willing to Win does not necessarily endorse any people, products, or services.